Hi everyone, Freethany Hugs Tano here, the internet's busiest music nerd. And it's time for a review of the new Lil Ugly Mane album/compilation, Third Side of Tape. Lil Ugly Mane, a Virginia rapper and producer, aka Travis Miller, who came to widespread internet attention at about 2012 with the release of the album Mr. Thug Isolation, a record or mixtape that kind of got caught up in the buzz that was very strong at the time for cloud rap and sort of southern hip-hop. And while Miller's music on this record definitely fit into those trends, simultaneously he had a really strange and sort of warped approach to them. There was a uniqueness to this record that drew a lot of people to it, and some good songwriting and rapping as well. But me personally, listening to this album, I just got this sense of aloofness from it. Sort of like Travis was just kind of messing around, and what he was messing around with just happened to actually be good. And not just good, but in a way sort of necessary for underground hip-hop at the time. And I don't mean to say that Travis isn't talented on this record. What I'm trying to say is that Travis seems like an artist who is more focused on the process of creation than he is any sort of larger ambition for his music into the future, sort of its presentation, or even just like, making a career off of his music. It seems like at every turn Travis has kind of turned his back on an opportunity to step in the limelight for any extended period of time. And this is shown in the lack of interviews he's done. His numerous musical projects that dive into other genres. He's super prolific, hard to kind of keep track of every single release for people who are kind of just getting into him. And as I alluded to earlier, he quit Lil Ugly Mane pretty much right after the release, or not the release, but the buzz of Mr. Thug Isolation. And ever since, Travis has kind of become this elusive musical figure who only kind of communicates with people through his Facebook for the most part, and he really means it when he says he rejects the whole internet hype cycle. Yet, Mr. Miller here has had an incredibly active quitting, because he has come out with so much music since Lil Ugly Mane sort of disbanded. I mean, he even has a box set, a vinyl box set on the way for this project, maybe other projects that he's worked on as well. However, a lot of these projects that Travis has released aren't just rap music, and he swears that pretty much all of it is older material, although he has released tracks and verses since he has quit, sort of making reference to the fact that he is quitting or just not interested in popularity through the Lil Ugly Mane name. And these compilation projects Travis has put out since he quit Lil Ugly Mane have been these long, obtuse, just genre-hopping collections of moments kind of just fused together into one just overly long track. And this right here is essentially the third volume of these two previously released Strange compilations. And I believe it's his longest compilation yet. The majority of this LP or compilation is held within these 6 monstrous tracks that number up to about 20 minutes each, which leads to a project that is just about over 2 hours long. So not really inviting, not really an easily digestible project, at least looking at it from the outside. But once I actually started listening to this thing, I actually found this project to be a little bit more determined and purposeful than Lil Ugly Mane stuff that he was dropping when the project was active. On this project, Lil Ugly Mane does more genre hopping than ever. You get filthy, twisted, hip-hop instrumentals in the track listing here, drones, ambient songs, electronic music, house and techno, but kind of just a strange vibe. Plunderphonics, dark wave, so a little shoegaze, some lo-fi rock, some punk rock, some black metal. Yeah, on part 2, side 2, there is black metal, which develops into this kind of hyper-rigid electronic odyssey directly after. Even though this does, it has to be a compilation. It has to be a compilation. It has to be. But still, it feels like the way that these songs were put together was really purposeful, really intentional. It flows together really well, despite the fact that these genres don't typically pop onto one record, but really what holds it all together is just the strange, grimy production, but there is a lot of talent and finesse to the way that Travis produces on this record. don't think that just because some of these songs are lo-fi that there aren't fantastic sounds and textures here. There are. And even though the track lengths on this project may be 18 or 25 minutes, the track lengths don't really matter because you're kind of getting just bunches of little snippets and interludes over the course of these tracks, all of which are pretty moderately sized. There are a few monstrous length songs in the track listing here in the midst of these longer tracks, but for the most part, I mean, everything is pretty digestible and bite-sized if you just accept the fact that you're not getting a track listing and that it's all bunched together and that you can't skip to the next song. In that sense, it's kind of quite literally like listening to a cassette tape. I think how much you enjoy this project is going to be heavily dependent on whether or not you sort of appreciate the genres that Lil Ugly Mane is kind of dabbling in on this record. Although still, I do have to kind of acknowledge that I think him bunching all of these genres together on this project continues the sort of anti-accessibility narrative that he's got going so far with his music. I mean, he's just trying to weed out casual listeners because a record with this variety and of this length doesn't exactly make a concise, punchy review easy. But still, even though this thing was lengthy, I found it really enjoyable. I found an incredible amount of talent, not only in writing, but Travis's just production abilities here. Pretty much every rap instrumental on this record is fantastic. It's textured. It's like listening to Dilla or Madlib, like, you know, living underground in a sewer like a mutant, just hiding away from the world. And even the musical turns that are kind of unexpected on this record sound great as well. There are synth interludes that take kind of a soundtrack horror synth direction. There are noise rock riffs on this thing. There's even an instrumental here that I think could pass for chillwave, and the level of detail and texture on each rock instrumental, on each rap instrumental, on each electronic bit here is great. I don't think Travis is just aping the sounds on these different musical styles. With each musical style he approaches, he captures the texture and he captures the grooves and he captures the emotional essence of these genres as well. There are a few electronic interludes here and a dark wave track that are a little underwhelming, as well as like an industrial drone death metal track on the intro to the A side of part 3, where we're kind of getting these screams over this instrumental as well. Sounds kind of prurient-ish. It's kind of hard to get into given that it's so outside of what the rest of this project is doing, but it lasts so long and it's so frightening and it's so strange that I can't help but get into it anyway. Again, I just feel like the way that Travis assembled these tracks was just it just flowed really well, despite the fact that it's just jumping from one idea to the next with just no predictability or warning. As far as the rap cuts on here, which I think that's what people are going to mostly be interested in, again, the instrumentals, I said, for the most part, are amazing. There are a few cuts on here where we're actually getting some rapping, and those, for the most part, are amazing as well, with the exception of the few tracks on here that feel very obviously like very old rap demos. One track in particular that feels like a bit of amateurish, clumsy jazz rap, where we're getting this hook where the word legacy is being spelled out. Not to mention that this track clashes completely with the kind of upbeat, poppy, lo-fi goth rock that comes in directly after it. I could try as hard as possible to go into each one of these individual tracks and talk to you about what makes it great, but I don't really think this project is about any one great moment or song, even though there are a lot of great moments and songs on this thing. I think this project is really about an amazing appreciation for songwriting, different musical styles, and aesthetics. Also, what this album is about is just about diving into the musical mind of Travis Miller. He is musically insane, or maybe even schizophrenic in a way. It's like he's got these different musical voices in his head, and this project is him trying to talk or recreate or communicate those voices as well as he possibly can. So yeah, I mean, my trip through this thing was great. This is definitely going to be, you know, a musical highlight for me toward the end of the year. With it being so long and with there being so many moments, obviously not every moment is as fantastic as the next. And, you know, there isn't too much here that's reinventing the wheel or anything like that. But, man, this thing has an incredible amount of skill. And I've heard some people liken it to sort of soundtracks for the blind and sort of say it's hip hop's answer to that. And maybe while I think that that comparison is a little overblown, I wouldn't say it's too far off, you know. And yeah, I mean, I don't really think I could say anything else about this thing. I think it's great. I'm feeling a decent to strong 8 on this project. Transition. If you've given this project a listen, what did you think of it? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Why? What do you think I should review next? And that's it. Anthony Fantano, Lil Ugly Mane.